The grand halls of Buckingham Palace echoed with tension on that fateful Tuesday morning. Camilla walked through the marble corridors with her head held high, her crown glinting under the crystal chandeliers. She had been queen consort for nearly 2 years now. But lately, she felt the weight of constant scrutiny from the royal staff and the public. Princess Charlotte, now 12 years old, had grown into a confident young girl who understood her place in the line of succession. She was third in line to the throne, after her father Prince William and her older brother Prince George. The palace staff adored her natural charm and grace, qualities that reminded everyone of her late grandmother, Princess Diana. That morning, Charlotte was scheduled for her weekly etiquette lessons with Mrs. Margaret Thornberry, the palace's head of protocol. As she walked toward the blue drawing room, she noticed several royal guards standing at attention near the Queen's private study. Their faces looked serious, more serious than usual. Commander James Morrison, the head of the Royal Protection Squad, had served the monarchy for over 25 years. He was a man of few words but strong principles. He had protected 3 generations of royals and took his oath seriously. That morning, he received an unusual request from Queen Camilla that would test his loyalty to the crown. Camilla had summoned Morrison to her private study at 9 o'clock sharp. The room was decorated with expensive tapestries and portraits of former monarchs. She sat behind an ornate mahogany desk, her fingers drumming impatiently on its polished surface. "Commander Morrison," she began, her voice carrying an edge of authority, "I need you to understand something very clearly. I am the queen consort of this realm. When I give orders, they are to be followed without question." Morrison stood at attention, his face neutral. "Of course, Your Majesty. How may I assist you?" Camilla leaned forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Princess Charlotte has been getting ideas above her station. She's been making requests to the staff, acting as if she has some sort of authority here. I want you to make it clear to everyone that all orders come through me first." The commander felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of service, he had never been asked to limit a royal family member's interactions with the palace staff, especially not a child who was directly in line to the throne. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "Princess Charlotte is third in line to the throne. According to royal protocol, she does have certain privileges and—" "Protocol?" Camilla interrupted, her voice rising. "I'll tell you what protocol is. Protocol is respecting the chain of command. And right now, I am at the top of that chain when it comes to the daily operations of this palace." Morrison shifted uncomfortably. He had witnessed many power struggles within the royal family over the years. But this felt different. This felt personal. Meanwhile, down the hall, Princess Charlotte was having her own conversation with Mrs. Thornberry. The elderly woman had been teaching royal etiquette for over 30 years and had a special fondness for Charlotte. "Princess," Mrs. Thornberry said gently, "I've noticed some tension in the palace lately. Is everything well with your family?" Charlotte looked up from her posture exercises, her young face showing wisdom beyond her years. "Mrs. Thornberry, do you think it's wrong for me to ask the gardener to plant more roses in the memorial garden, the ones for Grandmama Diana?" Mrs. Thornberry's heart melted. The memorial garden had been Princess Charlotte's idea, a small tribute to the grandmother she had never met, but felt connected to through stories and photographs. "Of course not, dear," Mrs. Thornberry replied. "Your grandmother would have loved those roses, and you have every right to make such requests. But Queen Camilla says I need her permission for everything now. She says the staff serves her, not me." Charlotte's voice was quiet, but there was a note of confusion and hurt in it. Mrs. Thornberry felt her chest tighten. She had served the royal family through many challenges, but she had never seen a queen consort try to limit a direct heir's natural development into their royal role. Back in Camilla's study, Commander Morrison was struggling with his response. His oath was to protect the royal family and uphold the constitutional monarchy. Princess Charlotte represented the future of that monarchy. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "I understand your position. However, I must respectfully point out that Princess Charlotte's education in royal duties includes learning to interact appropriately with palace staff. This is part of her preparation for her future role." Camilla's face flushed red. "Are you questioning my judgment, Commander?" "Not at all, Your Majesty. I'm simply explaining the established protocols that have guided royal education for generations." The Queen Consort stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Let me make something perfectly clear. Commander Morrison, you serve me, not Princess Charlotte. This is my palace, and these are my staff members. If that little girl wants something, she can ask me, and I'll decide if it's appropriate." Morrison felt his jaw clench involuntarily. In all his years of service, no one had ever referred to a member of the royal family as that little girl, especially not Princess Charlotte, who carried herself with remarkable grace and dignity. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady but firm, "Princess Charlotte is not just any child. She is third in line to the throne of the United Kingdom. She is a senior member of the royal family, and as such, she deserves the respect and courtesy that her position demands." Camilla's eyes flashed with anger. "How dare you lecture me about respect? I am the Queen." "You are the Queen Consort," Morrison corrected quietly. "And while that is indeed a position of great honor and respect, it does not supersede the rights and privileges of those who are directly in line to inherit the crown." The room fell silent. Camilla stared at Morrison, clearly shocked that someone had dared to contradict her so directly. Morrison stood his ground, his years of military training and constitutional knowledge backing his position. "Furthermore," Morrison continued, "my oath is to protect and serve the constitutional monarchy. That includes ensuring that future monarchs receive proper preparation for their roles. Princess Charlotte's interactions with palace staff are part of that preparation." Camilla walked around her desk, stopping just inches from Morrison. "I want you to think very carefully about your next words, Commander. Your career, your pension, your reputation. They all depend on your loyalty to me." Morrison looked directly into her eyes. "My loyalty is to the crown, Your Majesty. It always has been, and it always will be. And right now, that means protecting Princess Charlotte's right to learn her future role without interference." The tension in the room was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Camilla realized that her attempt to assert dominance had backfired. Morrison was not intimidated by her threats, and his constitutional knowledge was far superior to what she had expected. "Get out," she said quietly. "Get out of my sight." Morrison bowed formally. "As you wish, Your Majesty. But I want you to know that I will be documenting this conversation in my official report." As Morrison left the room, he felt the weight of what had just transpired. He knew that this confrontation was far from over. Camilla had revealed her true intentions, and now he had to decide how to protect both the monarchy and Princess Charlotte from what seemed to be a growing threat to royal protocol and tradition. Walking through the corridors, Morrison passed the blue drawing room, where Princess Charlotte was still having her etiquette lesson. Through the slightly open door, he could hear her sweet voice asking Mrs. Thornberry about proper forms of address for foreign dignitaries. The contrast between her genuine interest in learning her royal duties and Camilla's attempt to suppress that learning was stark and troubling. Morrison knew that he would need allies in the coming battle. The royal household was filled with dedicated staff members who had served the monarchy faithfully for decades. They would not stand by and watch a queen consort undermine the future of the institution they had devoted their lives to protecting. As he reached his office, Morrison began to formulate a plan. He would need to document everything, gather support from other senior staff members, and prepare for what might become the most challenging period of his career. The future of the monarchy might very well depend on the decisions made in the coming days. News of the confrontation between Queen Camilla and Commander Morrison spread quickly through the palace's intricate network of staff members. By afternoon, whispers filled the servant corridors, and concerned glances were exchanged during the changing of the guard. Mrs. Elizabeth Hartwell, the head housekeeper, had worked at Buckingham Palace for 38 years. She had seen 3 monarchs and countless changes, but she had never witnessed such a direct challenge to established royal protocol. When Morrison discreetly approached her later that day, she was already aware that something serious had occurred. "Elizabeth," Morrison said quietly as they met in the palace library, away from prying eyes, "I need to speak with you about a matter of grave importance." Mrs. Hartwell nodded, her experienced eyes showing concern. "I've heard whispers, James. The staff are worried." "What exactly happened this morning?" Morrison recounted the conversation with Camilla, carefully explaining each detail. As he spoke, Mrs. Hartwell's face grew increasingly troubled. "This is unprecedented," she said finally. "In all my years here, I've never seen a queen consort attempt to limit a direct heir's access to palace staff. It goes against everything we've been taught about royal protocol." "That's not the worst of it," Morrison continued. "She specifically referred to Princess Charlotte as that little girl, and demanded that all of the princess's requests go through her first. She's essentially trying to isolate Charlotte from the very people who are supposed to help her learn her future role." Mrs. Hartwell shook her head in disbelief. "Princess Charlotte is one of the most well-mannered and thoughtful young royals I've ever had the pleasure to serve. Her requests are always appropriate, and often show remarkable consideration for others." "I know," Morrison agreed. "Just last week, she asked if the kitchen staff could prepare a special meal for the security team working the night shift. She noticed they only had access to cold sandwiches, and wanted to make sure they were properly fed. And remember the Christmas gifts," Mrs. Hartwell added warmly. "She personally wrote thank you notes to every single staff member, mentioning something specific about their service. That kind of thoughtfulness cannot be taught. It comes from genuine character." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the library door. Mrs. Thornberry entered, looking visibly distressed. "Forgive me for interrupting," she said, "but I felt you should know. Queen Camilla has just issued a formal memo to all department heads. She's declared that any requests from Princess Charlotte must be approved by her personally before action can be taken." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. "She's actually putting it in writing?" Mrs. Thornberry nodded, pulling out a copy of the memo. "It gets worse. She's also stating that any staff member found encouraging inappropriate behavior from junior royals will face disciplinary action." Mrs. Hartwell read over the memo, her face growing pale. "This is essentially making it a punishable offense to treat Princess Charlotte with the respect due to her position." "There's more," Mrs. Thornberry continued reluctantly. "I overheard her on a phone call with someone. I couldn't tell who. But she was saying that Princess Charlotte has been getting above herself and needs to learn her place in the hierarchy." Morrison stood up abruptly, his military training making his posture rigid with controlled anger. "Princess Charlotte's place in the hierarchy is third in line to the throne. She doesn't need to learn her place. She is her place." "What can we do?" Mrs. Hartwell asked. "We can't directly contradict the Queen Consort, but we also can't stand by and watch this happen." Morrison had been thinking about this very question all afternoon. "We document everything. Every conversation, every memo, every inappropriate comment, and we protect Princess Charlotte while staying within the bounds of our duties." "How do we do that without defying direct orders?" Mrs. Thornberry asked. "Carefully," Morrison replied. "Royal protocol has been established over centuries. There are proper channels for concerns about constitutional matters. We follow those channels." Unknown to the staff members planning their careful resistance, Princess Charlotte herself was becoming increasingly aware of the strange new restrictions being placed on her. That afternoon, she had tried to visit the palace kitchens to thank the chef for the lovely birthday cake prepared for one of her tutors. She was stopped by a junior staff member, who nervously explained that she needed permission from the Queen Consort first. Confused and slightly embarrassed, Charlotte returned to her rooms. She sat at her window seat, looking out at the palace gardens where she had spent so many happy hours. For the first time in her young life, she felt truly unwelcome in her own home. Her younger brother, Prince Louis, found her there an hour later, staring quietly out the window. "Charlotte? Are you all right?" the 9-year-old asked, with the directness typical of children. "Louis," she said slowly, "do you ever feel like you don't belong here?" Louis looked confused. "What do you mean?" "This is our home." "I know, but..." Charlotte struggled to find the words. "Sometimes, it feels like people don't want us here. Like we're in the way." One. Louis sat down next to his sister. Despite his young age, He was perceptive enough to sense that something was wrong. Is someone being mean to you? 2. Charlotte didn't want to worry her little brother. But she also needed someone to talk to. Not mean exactly. Just different, like they don't think I should be able to ask for things or talk to people the way I used to. That's silly, Louis said firmly. Papa always says we should be kind to everyone, and that everyone who works here is part of our family. The mention of their father made Charlotte realize something important. Prince William was away on a royal tour of Canada and wouldn't return for another week. Their mother, Princess Catherine, was recovering from a minor surgery and had been advised to rest. The timing of Camilla's power play seemed deliberately calculated. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Queen Camilla was meeting with her private secretary, a relatively new employee named Mr. Geoffrey Whitfield. Unlike the long-serving staff members, Whitfield had only been at the palace for 6 months and felt his loyalty lay primarily with his direct employer. I want you to monitor Princess Charlotte's activities closely, Camilla instructed. If she makes any requests to staff members without going through proper channels, I want to know immediately. Of course, Your Majesty, Whitfield replied, though he felt uncomfortable with the assignment. Might I ask what constitutes proper channels in this case? Everything goes through me, Camilla said firmly. Everything. I want to know if she so much as asks for a glass of water without permission. Whitfield shifted in his chair. Your Majesty, forgive me, but isn't Princess Charlotte a senior member of the royal family? Traditionally, senior royals have had direct access to palace staff for routine matters. Camilla's expression hardened. Mr. Whitfield, you've been here for 6 months. I've been part of this family for nearly 20 years. I think I know better than you what's appropriate. Of course, Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect. See that you don't. And remember, your employment here depends on your ability to follow instructions without questioning them. As Whitfield left the meeting, he felt deeply troubled. In his previous career in the civil service, he had been trained to recognize potential abuses of power. What he was witnessing seemed to cross several lines of appropriate conduct. That evening, Commander Morrison received an unexpected visit from Sir David Chambers, the private secretary to the king. Sir David had served the royal family for over 20 years and was known for his discretion and wisdom. James, Sir David said as he entered Morrison's office, I understand there have been some unusual developments today. Morrison nodded. Word travels fast in the palace. Indeed it does. I've seen the memo that was circulated. I must say, it's quite extraordinary. That's one way to put it, Morrison replied carefully. He knew he could trust Sir David, but he also knew that anything he said could potentially reach the king's ears. James, I want you to know that His Majesty values the traditional protocols that have guided the royal household for generations. He would be concerned if he felt those protocols were being unnecessarily altered. Morrison understood the coded language. Sir David was telling him that the king would not approve of Camilla's actions, but that direct interference was complicated by family dynamics. I've been careful to document everything, Sir David. Royal protocol is clear about the rights and privileges of those in the line of succession. Quite right. Sir David nodded approvingly. Constitutional matters are never to be taken lightly. The monarchy's strength lies in its consistency and adherence to established precedent. What would you advise, sir? Sir David considered carefully before responding. I would advise that you continue to perform your duties according to the constitutional requirements of your position. The protection of the royal family includes protecting their right to fulfill their roles appropriately. It was as close to official permission as Morrison was likely to get. Sir David was essentially telling him to ignore Camilla's instructions if they contradicted constitutional protocol. I understand, Sir David. Thank you for the guidance. As Sir David prepared to leave, he paused at the door. James, the strength of the monarchy has always depended on people like you. People who understand that their loyalty is to the institution, not to any individual. Keep that in mind in the coming days. James, after Sir David left, Morrison felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was not alone in his concerns, and he had tacit support from the highest levels of the royal household. The battle lines were being drawn, but he was on the side of constitutional law and royal tradition. The next morning would bring the confrontation that everyone sensed was coming. Princess Charlotte's natural desire to learn and participate in royal life would inevitably clash with Camilla's attempts to control her. When that moment came, the palace staff would be forced to choose between following inappropriate orders or protecting the future of the monarchy they had sworn to serve. The confrontation that would change everything happened on a bright Wednesday morning. Princess Charlotte had received an invitation to visit a children's hospital the following week, part of her gradual introduction to royal duties. Following proper protocol, she wanted to discuss the visit with the palace's charitable events coordinator to understand what would be expected of her. Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, who had organized royal charitable visits for 15 years, was delighted to help. Princess Charlotte's genuine interest in philanthropy reminded her of the late Princess Diana, who had transformed royal charity work with her personal touch. They were in the middle of their discussion when Queen Camilla stormed into the room, her face flushed with anger. Behind her stood Mr. Whitfield, looking uncomfortable, but determined to follow his employer's instructions. "What exactly is going on here?" Camilla demanded, her voice cutting through the peaceful atmosphere of the Charitable Affairs office. Princess Charlotte looked up in surprise. "Hello, Queen Camilla." Mrs. Mitchell was just explaining the hospital visit next week. "I wanted to understand how I could best help the children we'll be meeting. Did you ask my permission for this meeting?" Camilla's voice was sharp and unforgiving. Charlotte looked confused. No. I didn't think I needed permission to learn about my royal duties." "Well, you thought wrong," Camilla snapped. "From now on, all of your activities must be approved by me first. Do you understand?" Mrs. Mitchell felt her protective instincts kick in. She had watched Princess Charlotte grow from a small child into a thoughtful young lady, and she would not stand by and watch her be humiliated. "Your Majesty," Mrs. Mitchell said respectfully but firmly, Princess Charlotte was simply fulfilling her educational requirements. Learning about charitable work is part of the standard curriculum for junior royals. Camilla turned her fury on Mrs. Mitchell. "I don't remember asking for your opinion. This is between me and Princess Charlotte." "Actually, Your Majesty," came a steady voice from the doorway. "This concerns all of us." Commander Morrison had arrived, flanked by Mrs. Hartwell and Sir David Chambers. Word of the confrontation had spread quickly through the palace communication network, and the senior staff had mobilized to protect Princess Charlotte. Camilla's eyes narrowed as she saw the group of palace officials. "What is the meaning of this? Are you staging some sort of rebellion?" Sir David stepped forward, his voice calm but authoritative. "Your Majesty, we're here to ensure that royal protocol is properly followed. Princess Charlotte's education in her royal duties is a constitutional matter, not a personal one." "Constitutional?" Camilla laughed harshly. "I'll tell you what's constitutional. I am the Queen Consort, and in the absence of the King, I have authority over the daily operations of this household. With respect." "Your Majesty," Morrison interjected, "that's not accurate. The Queen Consort's role, while important and honored, does not supersede the constitutional rights of those in direct line to the throne." Princess Charlotte watched the adults arguing around her with growing understanding. At 12 years old, she was mature enough to realize that this wasn't really about her hospital visit or her conversation with Mrs. Mitchell. This was about something much deeper, about respect, about hierarchy, and about the future of the monarchy itself. "May I speak?" Charlotte asked quietly, but her voice carried clearly through the room. Everyone turned to look at her, this poised young girl who found herself at the center of a constitutional crisis. "Queen Camilla," Charlotte said, her voice respectful but steady, "I don't understand why you're upset with me. I've always tried to be respectful to you and to everyone in our family." Camilla's face softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "Charlotte, you need to understand that there's an order to things. A hierarchy. You're a child, and you need to learn your place." "My place?" Charlotte repeated, genuine confusion in her voice. "But Queen Camilla, my place is third in line to the throne. Papa has been teaching me about that since I was very small. He says that with that position comes responsibility to learn and to serve. Your father isn't here, Camilla snapped, her composure cracking. And when he's not here, you answer to me. Actually, came another voice from the doorway. When I'm not here, she answers to the Constitution and the established protocols of the monarchy. Everyone turned to see Prince William standing in the entrance to the office. He had returned from Canada a day early, having been discreetly contacted by Sir David about the developing crisis. Camilla's face went pale. William, I didn't expect you back so soon. Clearly, William replied, his voice carrying the unmistakable tone of future king. Charlotte, are you all right? Yes, Papa, Charlotte replied, though her voice carried a slight tremor. I was just trying to learn about the hospital visit. William's jaw tightened as he took in the scene. His daughter surrounded by palace staff who had clearly come to protect her, and his stepmother looking defiant but increasingly isolated. Camilla, William said quietly, I think we need to have a private conversation. Sir David, would you please escort Charlotte back to her rooms? Mrs. Mitchell, please continue your excellent work preparing for the hospital visit. As the room began to clear, Camilla made one last desperate attempt to assert her authority. You serve me, not Princess Charlotte, she declared to the remaining staff members. I want that understood by everyone in this palace. Commander Morrison, who had remained at his post, looked directly at Camilla and spoke the words that would be remembered in palace history. Your Majesty, with the greatest respect, that is not correct. We serve the crown, we serve the Constitution, and we serve the future of this monarchy. Princess Charlotte represents that future, and we will protect her right to prepare for her role, regardless of any personal feelings or preferences. The silence that followed was deafening. Camilla had been directly contradicted by the head of royal security in front of multiple witnesses. More importantly, she had been contradicted on a matter of constitutional law. Prince William stepped forward. Commander Morrison is absolutely correct. The royal household serves the monarchy as an institution, not any individual within it. That principle has guided us for over 1,000 years, and it will continue to guide us. William, Camilla began, but he held up his hand. This conversation is over, William said with finality. Charlotte's education and royal duties will continue as planned. She will have full access to palace staff for appropriate requests and learning opportunities. Any attempt to interfere with that education will be considered a serious breach of royal protocol. Camilla looked around the room, realizing that she had completely miscalculated. In her attempt to assert dominance, she had instead triggered a constitutional crisis that had unified the palace staff against her. You're all making a mistake, she said, her voice now more pleading than commanding. I'm trying to maintain order here. Order, William replied, comes from following established protocol, not from arbitrary assertions of power. Charlotte is a senior member of this family, and she will be treated with the respect her position demands. As Camilla left the room, her dreams of wielding absolute power within the palace crumbling around her, Commander Morrison felt a sense of satisfaction. The monarchy had been protected, constitutional protocol had been upheld, and Princess Charlotte would be free to continue her preparation for her future role. In the days that followed, a formal review was conducted by Sir David and the palace's constitutional experts. Camilla's actions were documented, and a clear memorandum was issued to all staff, reaffirming the traditional protocols regarding interaction with members of the royal family. Princess Charlotte, for her part, seemed to understand instinctively that something important had happened. She continued her charitable work with even greater dedication, perhaps understanding that her right to serve had been protected by people who believed in the importance of the monarchy's future. The hospital visit the following week was a tremendous success. Princess Charlotte's genuine warmth and interest in the children she met made headlines around the world. Watching the coverage, Mrs. Mitchell smiled as she remembered the girls' first question during their interrupted planning session. How can I best help the children we'll be meeting? Commander Morrison continued in his role, but with a new understanding of how far he was willing to go to protect the constitutional principles he had sworn to uphold. The palace staff had learned that standing together for what was right could overcome even the most intimidating attempts at inappropriate authority. And Camilla? She learned that being queen consort, while a position of great honor, did not grant unlimited power over those who were born to inherit the crown. The monarchy's strength lay not in the dominance of any individual, but in the careful balance of tradition, constitution, and respect that had sustained it through centuries of change. The attempted power grab had failed completely. In trying to strip Princess Charlotte of her rightful place in the royal hierarchy, Camilla had instead strengthened the resolve of everyone around them to protect the future of the monarchy. The crown claims she had tried to diminish had emerged stronger than ever, protected by the very people she had tried to control. Princess Charlotte's path to her future role would continue unimpeded, guided by the wisdom of constitutional law and supported by palace staff, who understood that their ultimate loyalty was not to any individual, but to the enduring institution of the monarchy itself.